Bobby, welcome to the show, man.
I'm honored to be here. From Texas all the way to Germany, baby.
Yeah, we make it happen, man. We make it
Let's
happen.
go. What a beautiful world we live in to be able to just do this remote. I would love to be sitting across from you in person, but to be able to do this like this is incredible.
Energy doesn't know space and time, man.
That's a bar.
Let's open like that.
That is a
Amazing.
bar.
Yeah. So, I know that you're helping people designing their own life, right? I'm interested. What was the point in your life that you, for yourself, try to design your own life in a more conscious way? What was the backstory of it?
May 2016 was the beginning of this, right? So I was 22 at the time. And I would say up until that moment in my life, I pretty much was living a life based on the construct or design of what it looks like to be a 22-year-old male growing up in Massachusetts in the US, right? Like I just kind of lived a very orthodox life. And when I graduated college, it was like this defining moment when it kind of just all came together when I realized this is an opportunity to, I couldn't put this into words then, but the words that I was looking for is creating a life by design. And, you know, during my junior year of college, I had an internship doing the thing I thought was what I wanted to do after college. I didn't like it. I was just so open-minded to like, what's the next step after college? And literally, I got an email 6 months after graduating saying, congrats to the class of 2016. 99% of you are enrolled in a full-time career. And I was part of the 1%. I wasn't. I was driving Uber full-time. I had just started my first podcast. And I was on a mission to find my passion and find my purpose. So that's when I really started to learn about consciousness, learn about awareness, understanding what my skills are. What do I want to do? Who do I want to become? And I'd say from that moment in 2016 all the way to this conversation, it has been a journey of creating and living a life by my design based on what I value, what my interests are. And it's evolved, right? It changes with seasons, but that was a moment everything changed for me.
And what is your current definition for success then?
That's a great question. I had a client do this this exercise 2 weeks ago, and now I'm getting asked to do it. I think if I like let go of me trying to think it through and just be honest with myself, I think truly success to me is living every day from a emotional state of freedom, joy, excitement, inspiration, right? It's not the things that's success, right? Even I walked by this beautiful all black Chevy Tahoe when I was walking to the gym today, and I'm like, I could see myself driving that SUV. That's a nice car. And then I caught myself and I was like, all right, yeah, it's great, but don't think that's the thing you need to feel better, to be more successful, et cetera. So I'm all about accessing those emotional states. Like I don't need the $1 million to feel the freedom. I don't need the Chevy to feel confident or feel valued. I just want to feel those emotions that I deem as important to me on a day-to-day basis. And I not every day is perfect, right? I have my highs and lows, but like I feel like on a daily basis, I'm living in that success, in those emotions, in that gratitude, in that excitement. And I feel really, really fortunate to have that perspective because I'm sure if I went into downtown Austin and I asked 10 people in a row, what's your definition of success? It is a very conscious, awoken city, but I would bet, at least half would say something around dollar signs, house, car, travel, jets, something in that.
Something external, eh?
For sure. That's a great way to put it. My success is very internal based.
And I believe we both are, I don't know if student is the accurate word, but we both are inspired by the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
And assessing these emotions, mm, for me, it's a very it's not an it's easy to understand, but to execute is a whole different game. I
Different
think
ball game.
as just like every other simple concepts that we know about life on how simple this is, but
Yes.
like in executing it, it's just super challenging, or can be super challenging at times, right?
Yes.
How do you actually, or how does the process look like, you assessing those emotions, the emotion of abundance, the emotion of feeling safe and secure? How do you access those emotions for you?
I'm so happy you said that because it's so easy, right, to say this on a podcast, but like if you peel back the layers, like it's rewriting an entire operating system within you. And that has not been an easy process. That has not been an overnight process, but it's just constantly reflecting on like what do I actually value and what makes me like what actually makes me feel the way I want to feel. And so I think it is taking the 20 minutes to do a meditation every morning and actually paying attention to what are the most immediate thoughts and emotions that come up during this time, because they're probably the most important ones I need to be aware of going into that day. And so if I can feel the anxiousness because of a difficult conversation with my fiance, or I can feel the overwhelm of trying to build my business and not seeing the results that I deem I should be having, if I can just see them and understand where I'm at, I can detach myself from that, or try my best to separate myself from that emotion and come back to a very grounded state. A state from a place of, I have the word gratitude tattooed on my, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, on my right hand. And I really do think that's the, I don't want to say the trick, but it's like, can you truly be, and I'm saying this for myself, can I truly be grateful to be exactly where I am with what I have? Because if I can do that, then everything else is just a cherry on top. But when I'm grateful for living from where I am and who I am, it's easier for me to access the future emotions that I want to feel, which is the freedom, the joy, the excitement. So, I'm trying to even think if I was at the starting line and up stepping into these emotions more. Joe Dispenza says it best. Most of us are living based on past emotions. We're thinking about the breakup 6 years ago. We're thinking about the argument with our work colleague from yesterday. We're thinking about the indecision it took for us to finally make that first piece of content. We're going past, past, past. It's the moment you start to shift and you look future that it's exciting. What does it look like to feel freedom? What does it look like to feel joy? What does it look like to feel abundance? And what would it feel like for me to just kind of feel into that right now? Like, I am driving the Chevy Tahoe. I have enough financial freedom to be able to book these trips and do these things. Like, that's exciting. That moves through my body, right? So it's an everyday practice. Like, I'm not thinking out loud or thinking in my mind, I need to feel more abundant. I need to feel more this, but I just am constantly auditing. Oh, I'm comparing myself to that person. What does it look like to let that go? And what does it look like to actually feel gratitude for what you have and who you have in your life right now?
And even catching those thoughts when we are comparing ourselves with others is already in itself a win.
It's part of the act.
It's I think it's there's this misconceptions that I hear a lot, where people are saying, I cannot meditate because thoughts keep coming up, assuming that the right meditation is when there are no thoughts anymore, you
Yeah.
know. And I I had a conversation with Danny Miranda, and we
Nice.
talked about meditation, and I shared the idea of meditation wanting to have no thoughts is just like going on a date just for the sake of sleeping with a girl, let's say,
Yeah.
you know. So it completely, you lose the essence of the dating itself. You're losing the essence of meditation. And for me, meditation is, it's a date with myself, you know. And then if it's a date with myself and I want to get out something out of it, well then what a transactional relationship am I in with myself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest misconception with the meditation is that we're supposed to just turn off thoughts. And it's not. It's just changing the relationship with the thought, right? Like if I had to visually think about it, it's almost like the thoughts are these balloons that are just being let go out of someone's hand, and you're just kind of seeing them continue up into space. And it's so peaceful, right? If you see a balloon going through the sky, outside if there's major wind, like it's this peaceful thing. It's just floating and making its way north, above us. And I feel like that's, for me, what has been the art of meditation is like, I'm not expecting the valve to shut off for the 20 minutes. I'm just expecting myself to just surrender and let these things flow through me and not white knuckle and hold on to them.
I got goosebumps. So, um, how was your first meeting with meditation?
It was through listening to the School of Greatness podcast with Lewis Howes, probably somewhere in 2015 or early 2016 when I was just starting to listen to his podcast. I kept hearing this common theme through all the incredibly inspiring, successful people that he was having on the show, that they meditate, they meditate, they meditate. And at that point in my life, I think the visualization that I had built of meditation was monks with their legs crossed, bald heads, That's what I thought. That's what I had processed and thought in my mind. But I kept hearing them talk about this, and I don't know if it was because Lewis ended up having the founder of Headspace on, or if Headspace was actually advertising on the show, which I think it was. I was like, let me see. It's a 30-day trial. Like, why not? And so I just started dipping my toes in probably 2016, 2017, and it wasn't a daily practice. I don't recall how often I was doing it. I probably could download Headspace actually and go look at the data. So that's actually something I need to do. But I just was like going in like open-minded, and it had this beautiful intro course, 5 minutes a day. What could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? I just sit there and that's it. But man, it grew. Like it took time to grow, but now it is a daily practice every day of the week. And sometimes it's the most exciting thing that I look forward to in the morning. Like, it's just, I need it to feel some sense of groundedness and peace. And I'm sure you can agree, it completely changes the version of me in the day-to-day life, right? It's like you go to the gym for an hour every day. You don't just go for the results in the gym. You go because you can go to the beach, take your shirt off, feel confident, go on that date, feel more confident, look yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm proud of myself. I'm taking care of my physique. And I found that's the same thing with meditation. It's not just the 20 minutes of setting down. It's I'm in a conversation with Bayu right now, and my mind wants to think about the rest of the day, but let's let that go, because the only thing I need to worry about right now is this conversation. Or another thought comes up, what am I going to have for lunch? Let that go. We'll worry about that when we get there, right? So now it's like this constant operating system of just letting go of all the extra and coming right back to what is in front of me right now.
Beautiful. How would you describe your relationship with ambition?
That's a great question. I think it has fundamentally changed, probably, and definitely, I feel like even more so in the last 3 months. I feel like the first 5 or 6 years of graduating college, and then from there on out, I needed to prove something to the world, prove something to myself. I had all these goals and aspirations. I needed to just do, check things off. And then at some point it kind of shifted where it's like, I'm humble, but I'm also proud of all these things that I've accomplished. And I can use that as motivation of like, whatever the next mountain is that I want to climb, I know I can do it because I've done all these other things. But I think another layer deeper to that, and something I've been dealing with probably over the last 2 months, is just like, and even in real time today, thinking about it, to be honest with you, like what is the true purpose of the ambition? You know, like the ambition to post more content. Why? Like you do want to help people, but yet you get disappointed when it doesn't get a lot of likes, comments, or shares. So what's the root? Or, you know, I've always visualized myself as like the guy that's running the podcast, or he's going to be on other people's podcasts, like that, the guy in front of the camera. And I do love these things, but thought about this today. What would it look like to fully let that go of that persona that I think I need to be, and just like take everything as it comes, right? So it's like the word was achieve.
Ambition.
Ambition. Sorry, I knew it was one or two. I am relentless when it comes to setting my goals and going after them. And I think that ambition is always going to be within me, but I think it's being so intentional with where I'm putting that ambition towards. Because now the ambition is different when you have a fiance, you have dogs, you're eventually going to build a family. Like there needs to be ambition for that.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm being transparent, you know, I've been selfish the last 8 years. All of my ambition has been inward, which has been great. I have no regrets, but now it's like, what's the cost of this ambition? And when does it actually come to a place where like I'm burning out, I'm overwhelmed, I'm not excited about the work, I'm just doing things to do things. So it's changed more recently more than ever, but to me it's fuel. It's fuel to the fire, fuel to the engine inside me that's kept me going.
I definitely can resonate with the part when you mentioned when you were younger, like wanting to get that, wanting to show others that I am capable, wanting to get that acknowledgement from outside, because I experienced that in my own way. So I have an older brother, and from my point of view, he's always the one who listened to my parents. He got good notes at school. So even when I moved to Germany when I was 17 years old, he went to Germany like 3 years prior. So he's older than me. He also lives in Germany. So from the outside world, it just seems like I am going on his under his shadow. So it was always an unconscious at that point, unconscious attempt for me to showing others like, hey, I I'm also struggling over here and doing my own life. So um, coming back to gratitude, it was so difficult for me to be grateful for the benefit that I actually got by him being in Germany 3 years before me. So I was always choosing like, he chose this path, I'll go this path, just to make a point like, nope, I don't want to be like that, right? And I think this is like where the awareness becomes very important, because it definitely was a fuel. And then the next interesting question is, how how pure of a fuel it is. Because once you use the fuel and then you burn that fuel to move your vehicle forward, there will be gas being left out. Like, and then how pure is this gas? Will this be gonna be like the one who's gonna kills you from inside? Because it's just such a, I wouldn't say dirty, but would I say dirty? Let me use the word dirty. Let's see how it feels. Because it doesn't come from a, again, I'm going to use abstract words. It doesn't come from a place of love, from a place of compassion, but it comes from a place of revenge. And I think we both can agree that a lot of people are building amazing stuffs from outside based on revenge. But then if we're talking about the inner qualities, I would argue, or at least with my work with other men, like I see how that becomes like a boomerang effect. I'm gonna to get something beautiful outside, but then something is eating me from inside, and if I'm not aware of it, I'm a ticking time bomb. I'll just have to wait until I'm going to explode, or even worse, implode, because no one can see it that I'm actually imploding inside. Everything looks shiny, and then just suddenly happens.
Yeah. I had a conversation with someone a couple of days ago, and he was sharing that we kept digging you know, this external goal, well, why? But why that, right? And we got to the root, and he shared like it really is from a place of proving like one of his close friends and his girlfriend wrong because they just doubted him. And he's like, I feel like that's like the biggest that has been when it comes to the fitness stuff that he was focusing on. He's like, that has been the biggest driving factor. And I said to him, that's not a bad thing, right? Like that part of you that wants to show them off and show what is possible. I said, but what would it look like for you to want to prove it to yourself? And they're just the cherry on top. And you could see it in him. And it was like, wait, how does that actually changes everything for him, like internally? Because now it's a you versus you game instead of you versus them. And I think that can change the internal state of him and probably for others. That I love the way you describe that as a boomerang. Because even if he's trying to prove those two other people, it's eventually going to come back to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't even acknowledge or congratulate or applaud him for the fitness achievement, now he's even more pissed because he thought that was going to be the thing that finally they'd come back and say, good job. Just the same way I had a chip on my shoulder when I graduated and I had gone through like this breakup with this girl. I call it a situational breakup. We weren't even formally together, but I was very emotionally hurt by it. And I had this chip on my shoulder, like someday she's going to come back. And then 4 years later, I saw her refollow me on Instagram. And it was like this, like, wow, like I did it. But then I was met with like, but what was the point? Like, like, okay, she follows you. Now what?
Yeah.
Like you live on the other side of the country. You're not going to follow up with her. And eventually I learned to just like, well, I used it as fuel. It helped me get to where I am, but it wasn't the main driving factor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the great moments in retrospect for me, because I went to Germany to become an engineer. I became an engineer, worked as an engineer, got promoted as a regional manager, and I had like this I had this invisible list what I want to achieve. I want to wear suits, having meetings with the
I get it.
big CEOs and whatever. Um, I had it all, and then it did not give me the enjoyment that I thought it was going to give me. And then I was just like, this is on one side, I understand that this is not giving me what I was expecting. So cognitively, I understand, but I was able to observe as well how tempting it is to just keep going, climbing the wrong ladder, even though you know that it's not even the one that you want to climb on.
Yeah. You're chasing the carrot at the end of a stick. And even when you get really close to it, it resets. Like climb the mountain, get to the top, and now you're looking at the next peak. And it's like, it's just this constant hamster wheel that I think a lot of people end up falling for. And I'm honestly really happy to hear that you had that awareness and like ability to pause and be like, wait a second, is this actually like the right ladder? Or am I just doing this because I have the degree and because I've already put in 3 years and everyone around me is telling me I need to do this because I make great money and this is the thing I need to do. But if I'm not even excited about it, what's the point? It's just wasted time, energy, and just not in alignment with who you are and who you want to be.
But it's so tempting, man. Just to
It's
like,
extremely tempting. And
it's
that's where the environment is the cue. Are you around people that encourage you to go for after the thing that you want to do, or you're around people that want you to play it safe because they're playing it safe as well? They don't want to see Bayu rising to new levels because then it's going to make them look at themselves and go, shit, I'm still down here.
how was uh, how was your experience when you made the decision to step out from Liquid IV? It was that right?
Yeah.
Where you
Yeah.
had like that stable job, you earn good money, and then you kind of like jump into the, let's say, unknown, and then see what this adventure brings me. How was that for you?
Yeah, I never thought about it until right now when you asked this question. So I already appreciate this reflection, which is you see like the, poster, billboard, like founders that exit for hundreds of millions of dollars and they're not even happy. And, it's relative to where I was at. Like had a great salary. I had benefits. I had paid time off, but it didn't matter. I wasn't fulfilled in the work. And for me, like it got to a point where it was like kind of a now or never moment. In a sense that like, if I didn't jump the ship then, I feel like I was going to lose all potential with like the coaching stuff I was building on the side and the social partnerships. And I just wasn't fulfilled. I was resenting the work. I was dreading it. I was just living in a very dark headspace. And like it's such a catch 22 because like you have a great opportunity. You're working for this fast growing hydration brand, it's a lifestyle brand, but like when it came to the day-to-day work, it wasn't in alignment with who I am at my core. So although it was like really tough to have that conversation, I wouldn't say tough, but it was just stepping over the edge into the uncomfort. And when I made the decision, I communicated it, it was like so much relief because I knew now there was an end point. It was no longer chasing the carrot at the end of the stick, hoping that next month it's going to make sense or the year after, or I'm just going to wait until I'm making more money on my coaching and then I can leave. It was like, you got to create the space and time to use that time and energy to put it back into your business. And so I had to leave when I did.
Were your family supportive with your decision?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate, Bayu. Even when I graduated college and I went to my parents and said, hey, I'm not getting a job. I'm 6 figures in college debt. So I'm going to drive Uber and start this podcast. And I think one of them asked, what is a podcast? And they were extremely supportive. They just gently said, your college loans are kicking in 6 months. We're not going to support you. You're going to have to find a way to pay those. So do what you feel is right. We trust you. We love you. We're here to support you. But just know like you're going to have to find a way to pay that off when it comes. And that created like a healthy pressure. And so fast forward to when this moment came, I remember I called my parents separately and my mom was definitely more of the cautious, like, what are you going to do now? How are you going to, she knew all the things I was doing on the side, but it was like very cautious. And then like, the next day I called my dad, maybe later that day, they're still married, but I wanted to talk to them separately. And he, he was like, oh yeah, I'm not surprised, and like I've talked about it for so long with them, like I can't wait until the day, this, that, the third, but like it did not emotionally register for him. He's like, oh, that's great. What are you doing now? Like he just knew like the day was coming. So I was met by two completely different responses, but both at the core were supportive and loving. And yeah, I was very fortunate for that. It makes me think about even when I was graduating, I had literally kids that I graduated with that were taking full-time roles that didn't want to do it, but their parents were literally forcing them to do it, probably because they opted and paid for their college tuition. And the deal was like, we're going to pay for your college, but you got to take this job. And these kids took it. And that's just a place that I would not have wanted to be in that position.
Yeah, man. I think it's mom's job to be anxious
For sure.
because I experienced it like when I decided to leave my job, and then after that I decided to travel um, to India to live there for a year. So to do that, I'm renting a warehouse, putting all my stuffs over there, right? And then I called them separately as well, because if I call my parents together, they're going to speak as a unit, and I don't enjoy that.
You want separate. You want
I want
separate.
I want them I want them to to have like their own point of views, right? And I remember telling my mom about my decision, and I needed to tell her, Mom, this is a one way communication. So I'm not asking you for
Feedback.
I'm not asking you for feedback. I'm not asking you, should I do this or not? This is me informing you.
Mm.
And then even after the concept of me renting a warehouse, putting all my stuffs over there, which just makes sense because why should I pay a rent for a home that I don't live in for a year, right? And then the comment that my mom gave was, I cannot imagine my son having not having his own spoons, not having his own forks. How will he eat and everything? And I was like, Mom, what do
It's
you
all good.
this is like I don't live like under a bridge or something like that, but it's just that's why like I said, like I think it's mom's job to be anxious, man. That's like the
Yeah.
language on how they show love.
Well, think about even when you go even deeper to it, they're the ones that literally carry us for 9 months, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
they forever have a different attachment than the fathers
Mm-hmm.
ever could. Not to say that they don't love or care for their child more, but I think it's just a biological difference. Like you literally were produced by them, and
Mm-hmm.
my mom always says like when you're sick, I'm sick, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's anxiousness, it's care, it's love,
Mm-hmm.
but also it's like how beautiful is it that you have a relationship with your mom where she cares that much, right?
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
version where there's no relationship or they don't care, right? So
I know. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's powerful.
It is, and really with the way we communicate is I used to be annoyed when she like every time we call she always like gives comments about my haircuts about how everything and then I was like I was being annoyed and then she mentioned this to me. Hey, you said you made decisions and you made it a one-way communication. I accept it. But you need to give me room as a mom to tell about my thoughts and my
Oh,
feelings. You left home when you were 17 years old, and that's the last picture that I had of you. And I was like,
you haven't seen her since then?
I try to see them like once a year. So I try to fly back home
Yeah.
once a year or invite them. But that was like when I lived at home when I was 17, and that's like the last
Yeah.
thing. When I
Yeah.
go back home, I'm gonna stay there like for 2 weeks and then I'm gone again.
Yeah.
So it's a very different experience. And when she said that, I was like, okay, it's a deal. You can complain and I'm not gonna take it personally. I'm gonna give you room for that, but don't expect me to take your complaint as an order.
Ah, that's good.
So we're just gonna listen to each other. We listen and we don't judge.
Yeah. That's good. And honestly, it probably creates peace for her because she knows she has the space and ability to share. And yeah, I respect that and I have to, hold that space for my mom when she needs it too.
Yeah. I want to ask about your experience talking with Dr. Joe Hudson. So,
Mm.
for you listeners, please go check out Bobby's podcast. It's the Bearded Man. There's one for me. It was such a powerful episode where you had a deep conversation with him.
Yeah.
So if you like to share, how was it the experience for you, and how did you feel like afterward? Let's say until today.
Yeah, I mean, I knew going in to that conversation, I did not have any expectations. I didn't go in thinking Joe's gonna give me the answers to all my problems. He's not gonna write the prescription to all of these issues. And I also just I went in from a place of like, I really do enjoy his work and his content. And I was filled with gratitude with the opportunity to, get him for an hour of his time to coach me. And I couldn't have predicted that conversation to go the way it went. And it honestly just reminded me of, not even reminded me, it just showed me firsthand how good of a coach and listener he is, how powerful he is at understanding human beings. I do believe I'm a really good person, people to people person. I'm an extrovert. I can, really peel back the layers with people, but I saw it to another level with him. And, it was like a 50-minute conversation, and there was a lot of dead air in that conversation just because of processing and things he might have said or things that I was saying. But it was incredibly powerful. I don't even think I consciously am aware of actually how pivotal that conversation was, because it goes back to the ambition conversation. And I almost said kind of, over the last 3 months, Joe's conversation was one part of that. And I think it just helped me after looking back on that conversation, it's just like, who am I really trying to prove this to? Like, I've already done all these things. Like, how much more peaceful could it be if I just let go and like, I don't want to say just surrender, because it's, the spiritual, just surrender to it all, but like truly, like the moment I took the job at Liquid IV, I just surrendered to it. It was an incredible opportunity, kind of came to me, and I took a step towards it. And, there's other things that I'm working on the side right now that I'm like, just surrender to it if it feels in alignment and feels exciting. So that was a really powerful conversation, and it was just a reality check for me. Like, even after the conversation, I felt like I had like so much like energy, not in a bad way, but energy was pulled out of me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was not like, all right, like move on to the next thing. I took like 2 hours to just like slow down, chill. There was obviously a lot of emotions you can hear on the podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just like gave myself space to just kind of rest and reflect and go back into my work that afternoon, like more mindfully, more cautiously and intentionally. And it was powerful. But I'd love to hear, for a reflection for you, anything, what stood out. If you listen to the full pod, anything stand out to you or what you took from it?
So the first word that comes up in my mind is number one is vulnerability.
Mm.
Um, Hats off to you that you are, you. For me, it takes courage to show that to others, right? Because you let us, the listeners, go into your life,
Yeah.
you know, and that is such a powerful step and encouraging. That just strengthens the thesis, the sentence that we both, I think, can agree with, that vulnerability is strength, right?
Yes.
But until you experience it, it's just another beautiful Instagram quote, right?
Yeah.
Until you actually do the step and become vulnerable, and then, because it's it's scary. The more you think about it, it's scary.
For sure.
So that's the first thing. That's the first thing that popped up in my mind when I listened to it. And the second thing is, for me, it shows again how important is the question: how is the relationship between me and the most important person in this world doing? And for me, that most important person is myself.
Yeah.
That might sound egoistic in the first space, but just from mathematics, there's only one person that you're spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, from the day you were born until the day you die, and that person is you.
Yeah.
So I think even from rational logical point of view, it is a good strategy to have a good relationship with that person. That's the,
Yeah.
let's say, the two takeaways or two words that I got from that conversation.
Yeah, it's powerful, man. the relationship with yourself is, and that's, that's why I didn't mind posting or publishing it, because the relationship I've built with myself over the last 8 years is just one of like transparency, authenticity, confidence, and I'd be wrong not to show or take people in to those types of conversations. I can't just, put on that persona that everything is just fine and dandy. Like, I have my own challenges, and that was a huge takeaway I had from Gary Vee in 2016, that I was like, as I begin this journey of taking others along for the ride, I got to be honest with them too. And, certain things you got to be mindful of and when you speak on and share, but I'm so grateful that I felt so like A-okay with sharing that app out, because I knew it would show people a part of me that, it's not like I'm going to drop an episode like that every week or even every month. Like it's time, place, container, like so many things led up to that conversation. But I was proud of how it went. And yeah, I was really excited to see what people would think or hear of it when they heard it. But I appreciate hearing that reflection. I appreciate you giving it a listen.
Yeah, that's the picture that I have in front of my eyes is, after I finish that episode, is, I'm just gonna share this. I see you tapping your own shoulders, like kind of like good job, but you are not saying anything. You're just doing this, and that's it. So that was the picture that I had in my mind when I finished that episode.
Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful, man. Joe's a powerful coach, powerful creator, and he's a huge inspiration of mine.
It takes two to dance, my friend.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. It definitely does.
Bobby, I really, really hope that we will get more opportunities in the future to have a longer conversation. I really want to thank you for your time and your honesty already in this conversation. So thank you so much, and for doing what you're doing, for doing your work, and um, the ripple effect that's happening, through your actions and through your decisions, through the vulnerability that you are showing. I just, in this chance, in this opportunity, I want to share to you that that ripple effects arrived here in Germany, and I
Wow.
believe it arrives even more. And you might know it, you might not never know it in your life. It doesn't even matter. But for this case, I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing.
Man, I appreciate that, but I got to be honest, like watching you through this conversation and just observing you and listening to you, it is so clear that you have been on your own journey. And I want to say thank you for the time you put into yourself, because that ripple has been felt all the way here in Austin, Texas today. And just the intentionality and the thoughtfulness and the curiosity, it's like so clear even through this camera and this screen right now. And I don't know where the world will take us, but I hope that someday we do find an opportunity to sit down in person and have coffee. But I just appreciate the work you're doing, because it's rippling through this conversation, but also the community of people that I'm sure you're impacting in Germany. So thank you for holding the space, and thank you for making this happen. This adds fuel to the fire within me, brother. So yeah, I really appreciate the combo.